Hey guys, it's Eddie and I'm back with another movie review for you all. This time we are going to be reviewing True Romance, directed by Tony Scott and written by Quentin Tarantino. Now, for those who haven't seen this film, let me just give you all a little bit of a plot summary. So basically the film centres around two people, Alabama, played by Patricia Arquette, and Clarence, played by Christian Slater, who meet at a late night cinema showing and embark on a whirlwind romance. It's very sweet. Until Alabama announces and tells Clarence that she needs to go and get her stuff from her pimp. And so Clarence volunteers to do that for her. There's a whole brawl with the pimp, and Clarence ends up taking what he thinks is her suitcase full of clothes, but it actually turns out to be a suitcase full of narcotics. And it isn't too long before the two of them find themselves on the run. So I won't give you any spoilers, that's just a quick summary of what goes on in the film. I won't tell you how it ends. Now, a little warning for you all. This is a Quentin Tarantino written movie, and although it's not directed by him, it has got those Tarantino undertones that you'd expect, and it is very violent, very violent. I will put that out there. So for anyone who isn't a big fan of, you know, a lot of non-stop violence, then maybe this film isn't for you. But it's also very sweet. It's got a really, really heartfelt romantic element to it, which I think kind of counteracts the violence, I guess. I mean, I'm one of those people that can sit through a film really no matter what happens in it. Violence doesn't really bother me, but I know it bothers some people, so I would just give you a little bit of a warning before you watch this film about that. So first of all, when analysing the movie, I really wanted to just mention the performances. Now, Patricia Arquette as Alabama is so sweet. She's at first you think she's quite ditzy, you know, she seems only interested in one thing, and you really don't know where this romance is going to go with her. But they're both very smitten with each other, and the way that Patricia Arquette plays Alabama, she's really underestimated, but she's so strong. She's very strong. And as I was saying about the violence, there is a scene involving Alabama and a mobster played by James Gandolfini brilliantly, in which her bravery and her integrity is really, really tested. Now, I think that is one of the scenes, I won't tell you what happens, that is one of the scenes that I would probably warn people about. It is quite heavy going, it is quite hard to watch, but I think it just shows what a brilliant, strong character she is, and Patricia Arquette does a really fantastic job. I think that Christian Slater is great as Clarence. You know, when we first meet Clarence, we think what's really going on, because he talks to the mirror a lot, and in the mirror we see, credit to Tony Scott's fantastic directing, a figure talking back to him in the mirror that appears as sort of Elvis, and he's played by Val Kilmer in a fantastic cameo. So there's always a little bit of mystery about Clarence, but we do get the sense that he's just a really normal guy that's thrown into a situation and falls heavily in love. And I think Christian Slater fares really well in the role. Now, across the movie, there are also a number of amazing small parts and cameos that are performed by an array of gifted and incredible actors. I'll just give you some of my favourites. So we can't ignore Gary Oldman playing the pimp, Alabama's pimp, who is just absolutely fantastic. Is one of the weirdest but most entertaining small part film cameos I've ever seen in my life, and if you watch the film you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But when is Gary Oldman not great in anything? I don't think that's ever happened. I think if you just throw a role at Gary Oldman, he will just snap it up and just perform it to the best of his ability. So he is definitely one to watch out for in the film. He just brings so much quirky energy to the role, which I think for a character as sort of erratic and dangerous as the pimp, you really need that. You really need Gary Oldman's energy, and I think it was a fantastic choice. Another performance that I really loved is the portrayal of Clarence's dad by Dennis Hopper, who is just such a normal guy, and he's so endearing. Now I know Dennis Hopper isn't, you know, famous for sweet dad roles. If you've ever seen Blue Velvet or Speed or even Easy Rider, you know, he doesn't, we're not really used to seeing Dennis fulfill the role of an average father, but he usually opts for the psycho or the stoner. But I think in this film it was great to see him in that kind of role, and he really fitted into it well. He comes face to face with the men who are chasing Clarence and Alabama, and the leader of that little group, again stepping into a fantastic cameo, is Christopher Walken. Now there's a scene between Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken which is extremely tense. It's one of the most tense scenes, I think, in cinema history if you look at it the right way, and anyone who watches it will probably just, you know, recoil in their seat, because you find yourself really endeared to Dennis Hopper's character, and while the two, he and the mobster Christopher Walken, seem to be chatting along nicely, you know that there's a really sinister undertone to this scene. I think it's fantastic writing. The script is just incredible, you know, total credit to Quentin Tarantino and his story. And that scene is definitely one to look out for. The acting is superb, and you really end up feeling for Dennis Hopper in the role of Clarence's dad, because you know that all he wants to do is to protect his son who's got mixed up in this horrible thing, because he's fallen in love. Moving on to the direction, you may be thinking like, oh, why didn't Quentin direct this movie? Now, as far as I know, he had to sell the script because it was early days for him as a director, and he needed money. Like, he needed money to be able to produce films like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, so scripts that he wrote, like True Romance, had to be sold on for him to do that. But I think Tony Scott did an incredible job of taking on this movie, and there are certain scenes and sort of aspects of the movie, the direction, which are so good. For example, the love scene between Clarence and Alabama, the way it's shot in this beautiful blue hue is just really sort of enchanting, and in a sort of in between a film that is quite gritty and raw, it sort of casts a sort of spellbinding element on Alabama and Clarence's relationship as it begins to unfold, and you know, they begin to explore it a bit more, and that sort of cool blue lighting that he uses and the shadows, it's really beautiful. As well as that, notably in the violent scenes, he employs sort of a lot of really sophisticated angling. So when there's the scene with Gary Oldman as the pimp, him and Clarence sort of face off, and when the violence ensues, Tony Scott uses a lot of really good angling to make it seem even more dramatized and, you know, shocking, and it's really good. It sort of grips you. I think the way that the movie is filmed helps tether you to the story and intrigue you a little bit more. And those single shots of characters, especially in the face-off scenes, like the one I mentioned with Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken, just, you know, still shots of the characters talking to each other really help build the tension. And yeah, I think adapting a Quentin Tarantino script, Tony Scott did really, really well. Now, one of my favourite parts about this movie, I mean, with Quentin Tarantino based stories, you don't really expect a great deal of romance. It is there sometimes, and that's great, but when you watch a Tarantino film, you expect characters, and you expect violence, and you expect a fantastic story. And this is no different. But what I love about this film is it's sort of the, amidst everything that's going on, amidst the craziness, amidst them, you know, the couple being chased by people who want, you know, the drugs to sell, there is a sense of realism. The characters that they meet and encounter on the way, you expect these characters to exist in real life. For example, Clarence has a best friend, and his best friend's roommate is called Floyd, and he's played brilliantly in a really shining role by Brad Pitt. And he's a complete stoner. I don't think we actually see him leave the house in the entirety of the movie, but he's just so funny, and you just get the sense that sort of everybody knows of people like this. They can imagine people like this actually existing, and it's just like, even though these characters are thrown into a completely dramatic plot, you still get this sense of raw realism about the characters, and that's really good because it sort of helps draw you into the movie, and it keeps you fixated on everything that's going on because you believe it, you believe everything that's happening to them. So yes, I will say that it is a Tarantino love story of great proportions, filmed excellently by Tony Scott. And it's one that I continue to watch and enjoy over and over again. And it may not be for everyone. It may be a little too much to handle. But for those who are, you know, fans of Tarantino, fans of the sort of action genre, fans of even a little bit of romance, it is called True Romance, so you get a little piece of everything in this movie, and I think that's what's so great about it. I continue to enjoy it. I hope that if you see this review and you want to watch it, that you will too. I hope you've enjoyed listening to my review of True Romance, and remember, if you have any reviews for me to do, just leave a comment below, or you can message me on my Tumblr account, which I will also leave a link for below. But yeah, please feel free to leave me suggestions. I always welcome them, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!